Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video covering the Truthear Zero Blue 2. This is the new Crinacle collab, and of course, if anybody's familiar with my channel, the Truthear Crinacle Zero Blue original is actually one of the first budget IEMs that I've ever recommended for a competitive gaming purpose. That's what I do on my channel. I evaluate IEMs and headphones and determine which one is better to use as an analytical tool to be able to pin out those footsteps a little bit more to get that best depth perception that I can get. And most importantly, in my opinion, the best separation and layering. So when you're getting third-partied, fourth-partied, etc., in something like Apex Legends, when a lot of abilities are going on, you have multiple people on your team shooting, the other team shooting in Valorant, things like that. Which one performs better in strenuous scenarios? Because the data retrieval can be drastically different on different sets of IEMs. The Truthear original, the Truthear Crinacle Zero Blue, is a great IEM. At the price, it was one of the first budget IEMs, again, that I've ever recommended. It's a dual dynamic driver, and the only real complaint with these was that nozzle size in terms of its overall fit, and that has been corrected moving over to the Zero Blue 2. The nozzle now being, I believe, 6.2 millimeters as opposed to, I think the original was like 6.8. So there is a nice change in the overall fit in terms of what's going in your ear, but the overall chassis, I would say, is roughly the same size. There is also some additional venting now here on the backside compared to the original, which only had a little vent hole on the top of the chassis. So some differences on the chassis itself, but overall pretty relatively similar to its predecessor. Faceplate changed ever so slightly now with some more lines in there as opposed to just general broad swoops. But overall, I do think it is a good looking budget set and a great sounding budget set if you are somebody getting into the tuning, somebody that likes the Harman 2019 curve, which is, if you're not really familiar with it, it does generally result in a V-shaped frequency response, and it gives you a slight bass boost, a smooth mid-range, and a gentle treble lift is kind of the basis behind it, but generally a V-shaped tuning, and that is what you will hear for a general music listening perspective or purpose out of the Truthear Crinacle Zero Blue. I do think it's a good sounding set for general listening purposes, for music as well as entertainment, talking to your buddies on Discord, etc. It is a good budget set that will compete with its peers for that purpose. Comparing it, though, to the original and to determine really whether this can be used as an analytical tool like its older brother, the Zero One, moving into something like Apex, one of the things that I almost instantaneously noticed compared to the older brother is separation and layering do take a hit, particularly with gunfire, and that's probably a result of the tuning changes. But overall, there is a great sense of occlusion when you are shooting. It's hard to pick up on shield cells. It's hard to pick up on shield batteries. It's hard to pick up on little minute details like people sliding at a distance, people light tapping on metallic type things. And that's because when you are shooting and cracking into someone's armor, it is very hard to hear anything else. It does flood the space a little bit, and its older brother does perform slightly better. The older brother does have an issue with gunfire being a little bit, some may find it fatiguing, some may find it a little bit piercing or shrill, but overall there is this sense of a greater sense of air, a greater sense of data read on the originals that pulls through a little bit more, allowing you to hear things during those intense scenarios. I do find that the space feels a little bit wider, and the space does feel as though it's kind of increased in its overall depth. It doesn't quite feel, to me, it loses a little bit of intimacy, I feel, compared to the original, and that's because footsteps and bigger thocks do kind of pierce through and hit you a little bit more urgently on the original in Apex Legends. The tuning, I think, was just maybe a happy accident on the original, getting away a little bit from the Harman 2019 curve and having a elevation in that mid bass over the sub bass, moving into the mids and then, of course, the upper frequencies. But the Truthear Crinacle Zero just performs better to me than the original, and than the Zero Blue 2, and that really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, as I did put the Zero Blue over the Zero Red for gaming related purposes as well. And of course, the red kind of gets more in line with that H2019 curve as well. Now, the Zero Blue 2, I do find things sound better in game. Gunfire sounds better. It doesn't sound as odd and in its tonality in comparison to the Zero Blue. But specifically for the purposes of analyzing it as an analytical tool, the Zero wins for Apex in my personal opinion. Again, what I noticed is the slides come through with more urgency. You hear it better through the mix. It pierces, it hits you harder. The footsteps, the thocks come through the mix better and stronger. So it is easier to pinpoint people, and their distance comes through with more emphasis because it's louder in general. Also, you do have some things in the box, including the impedance adapter does boost the bass. I actually just found it to make things a little bit too muddy. I didn't find it to help the situation in Apex. You can also try the foam tips, but the foam tips to me actually made gunfire even more piercing, more bright, and more shrill, and it did not correct the separation and layering for me. It just kind of attributed to more issues in my personal opinion on the Blue 2. Now, moving into Valorant, I do think Valorant can be handled great on both of these sets. I do just think, again, that some of the thockier footsteps are piercing through the mix with greater emphasis. It makes depth perception come through a little bit more, as well as horizontal imaging. So when people are about to come out from behind a wall, I just get a better read of that imaging on the Blue in comparison to the Blue 2. I also find that things can get a little bit overwhelming in terms of shooting a sheriff, shooting a vandal, shooting a operator. Things just get a little bit loud. And again, there's this lack of sense of air in the mix of gunfire that will make you feel as though you're losing out on some data read. Like, for instance, when I'm starting to shoot a vandal, the things that are going around the map, including gunfire, including people maybe running at a distance, it just kind of blocks it out and you lose that data read. Whereas on some other sets, you may be able to hear that a little bit better, like the Zero Blue, the original. Now, moving into Call of Duty, I do find that the original still works more as well. I do think that somebody can have a great experience on the Zero Blue 2 without a doubt. There's different audio mixes that you can choose from, but just testing the headphone mix on both of these sets, I gave the edge to the Blue, the original. I find the thockier footsteps, again, to pull through with a greater emphasis. So when people are above you, people are below you, you hear it with greater impact. When people are kicking through doors, I just found it to be a little bit better. I do find that overall imaging was good on the Zero Blue 2. The only thing I did notice was when people were parachuting in, it does kind of feel off with respect to the overall imaging, in the sense that I'm not getting that impact that I would want to hear to kind of be like, hey, somebody is parachuting in, pay attention to this. It just comes through rather light and not as much emphasis as I would like. I do think airstrikes, mortar strikes, things are handled actually quite well, but the thing that doesn't pull through to a great extent is being able to hear, again, that data when a lot of gunfire is going on. So I do think that it's at a level that can meet the wallhack certified tier list, but I do just have to say I still think the Zero Blue is a better tool for all three of those titles. I have been playing Frag recently a lot, and in ranked, I also felt just more comfortable on the Zero Blue for the same reasons. It's just when a lot of shooting is going on, it kind of consumes everything else that's going on. And you really notice it. So I had to allow myself time to review this because I was coming off a set that I just awarded in A, which is a very high score, the Soft Ears Volume S. And I didn't want to be biased coming to this after testing such a good set. So I allowed myself time, allowed my brain to adjust to really get adapted to the Blue 2 without swapping to a more hefty set for competitive gaming purposes. And I'm still just of the same opinion. Of course, there is that adaptation period where you begin to kind of adapt and fill in the blanks when you are using a set that isn't as high on the wallhack certified tier list. But when you move back again to a set that really does provide that extra air, that extra data retrieval when things are getting a little too hot and spicy, it's just too much of a difference for me to be able to put the Zero Blue 2 over the original. So the original is something that has been scored around that B- mark on my wallhack certified tier list, which is an exceptional score for any set that is under $100, and still one of my top recommendations today in this price range. So guys, that is really going to be it for this one. Just to show you though what you get in the box. Again, we've discussed a few of these things, but you've got the silicone tips, foam tips, you've got the impedance adapter, a pleather pouch, and a slightly upgraded cable. I do think that what Crin has done here is shifted that focus to getting the target more in line, or the frequency curve more in line with that target H2019 curve. But really, this is a win-win scenario for people who want something more in line and more accurate to that curve representation. You can check out the Blue 2, but still for analytical gaming, the Zero Blue is still a top recommendation. And I think for the purposes specifically of competitive gaming, still a top recommendation in that price range. So you've got two different options, but I think two different options for a different type of listener, a different type of use case scenario. Crinacle, I think, is one of my favorite people in the audiophile space. What he does and what he puts out, and his testing, his measurements, etc., his YouTube content. He's just one of those guys that a lot of us look up to and a lot of us respect in the space. I think a lot of his data and a lot of the information that we get from him is immeasurable from my perspective. Just a great content creator and somebody who is invaluable and very useful. He has a ton of other collabs like the Dusk, which was just so amazing when I tested it, and really had sat down and just had a plethora of time dumped into a music listening session. Just really, really great things coming from Crinacle and those companies that he collabs with, and you love to see it. But guys, that is going to be it for this one. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.